I slipped into the garage to grab a few more chairs, and that's when I heard him say it. "You should have never married that guy. You still have time to get out." Her answer? Cool. Measured. Already in motion. My lawyer says we'll walk away with half his business. There's a specific kind of stress that lives in your bones when you're hosting dinner for your wife's entire family. Not just her parents, mind you, the whole clan. Her brother, her sister's 3 kids, 2 of whom can't eat gluten, 1 who thinks vegetables are an existential threat. Her mom, who comments on your backsplash like she's doing you a favor. Her dad, who still calls me champ in a way that makes it sound like an insult. And her. It was a Saturday in late spring, and the house smelled like I was trying too hard. Garlic, rosemary, onions sweating in a cast iron skillet. I had a roast chicken going in the oven, lemony and golden, plus green beans with toasted almonds, mashed potatoes with too much butter, because that's the only amount that matters, and a pecan pie cooling on the counter, which I made from scratch. Because I'm that guy. The playlist was dialed in. Classic soul, some Otis, some Al Green, the kind of music that feels like warm lighting. I'd even ironed a button-up shirt for the occasion, which I now realized was a wasted effort, because I'd sweat through it before the guests even sat down. Hosting this kind of event felt less like dinner, and more like a full-blown performance. One where you're the chef, the waiter, the emotional support animal, and the comic relief, all rolled into one. People were arriving in waves. Her dad offered a handshake with the same warmth as a bank audit. Her mom gave me a smile so tight I could hear it squeak. Her brother Nate, slicked back hair, designer jeans that looked painted on, brought some woman named Kara or Clara, who never looked up from her phone. Her sister marched in like she was storming a castle, flanked by 3 kids armed with questions, allergies, and juice boxes. But I held it together. That's what I do. I smiled, cracked a few dad jokes, offered drinks, pointed toward the snack tray, like a human GPS. I was mid-conversation about almond milk versus oat milk with her sister when I realized I forgot the extra chairs. "Be right back," I said, keeping my voice light. "Gotta grab a few from the garage." I walked down the hall and out the side door, happy for 30 seconds of silence and cool air. The garage smelled like motor oil and old soccer gear, my kind of nostalgia. The folding chairs were stacked in the corner behind the lawnmower, under a box labeled Xmas Lights? Like even past me wasn't confident in its contents. I was halfway to dragging them out when I heard voices from the other side of the garage wall, out in the driveway. I recognized Nate's voice first. "I still can't believe you married this loser," he said, with that same drawl he uses when ordering $20 cocktails. "Dad's right. You need to divorce him before you have kids and get stuck forever." I froze, not because I wanted to hear more, but because my body just stopped. Like my muscles got confused about what loyalty they belonged to. Then I heard her voice. My wife. "Already working on it," she said, clear as crystal. "My lawyer says we can take half his business too." There was laughter. Or maybe that was just blood rushing in my ears. I stood there, one hand on a rusty metal chair, feeling like the garage floor had been replaced with ice. The smell of oil suddenly made me nauseous. I stared at a pile of tangled extension cords and wondered if I'd misheard. Maybe they were joking. Maybe this was some cruel version of sarcasm. But I knew better. You can hear the truth in someone's voice when they're not performing. And she wasn't. She meant it. I should have barged out, thrown the chair, demanded answers. That's what the angry version of me wanted to do, the version fueled by pride and heartbreak. But instead, I picked up those chairs, all 3 of them, stacked neatly, and walked back into the house. The hallway felt longer on the way back. Inside, everyone was gathered around the table, laughing, filling plates, scooping potatoes like it was the most ordinary evening in the world. My wife stood by the oven, pulling out the chicken, golden and steaming, and looked at me like nothing had happened. She even touched my arm, smiled. Like we were still the couple who hosted game nights and disagreed about how much salt goes in the pasta water. I set the chairs down, took a breath that felt like swallowing glass, and said, "All right, looks like we've got room for everyone." And they sat, they laughed, passed dishes. Toasted with wine and sparkling water, her brother gave me a wink like we shared some kind of inside joke. Kemen. I played the part. Host. Husband. Fool. Haste. But inside, something had shifted. Something deep and permanent, like a foundation quietly cracking under too much weight. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew I wasn't going to forget what I'd just heard. Not tonight. Not ever. I didn't sleep that night. She curled up beside me like nothing had changed, like she wasn't plotting to carve up my business like a holiday ham. She even tucked her feet under mine, the way she always did when she was cold. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, watching it spin like it could somehow rewind time if I looked hard enough. In the dark, everything feels louder. The creak of the old bed frame, the faint hum of the fridge downstairs, and my thoughts, louder than all of it. I kept going back to her voice in the driveway. Calm, confident, like she was ordering takeout, not hiring a lawyer to dismantle my life. But here's the real kicker. I wasn't surprised. Some part of me, a small, quiet, cowardly part, knew. Maybe not the details, not the how or when, but the feeling. That something was off? It'd been there for months. Maybe longer. Mai tai ti chi ti. Mai ti ibasab. I remember when we first met. She wore this green dress. Real simple but fit her, like it was stitched for her bones. We bumped into each other at this local fundraiser, both of us pretending to care about the silent auction while secretly judging the finger food. She laughed at one of my dumb jokes, like really laughed, and I was hooked. She had that kind of presence that made you feel lucky just to be noticed. Confident, sharp, a little icy but magnetic. She said she liked that I wasn't flashy, that I listened more than I talked. Said she admired how I built my own business from scratch, like a real man. That compliment stuck with me, until it started feeling like a setup. Because somewhere along the line, real man turned into not enough. It wasn't obvious at first. She was supportive, at least on the surface. She offered to help with finances, insisted on merging accounts, pushed for a joint business credit card to simplify things. I thought it was partnership. Turns out it was groundwork. Jedversiu. Then came the comparisons. Her brother's promotion. Her dad's new condo in Scottsdale. The vacation her sister took where even the dog flew first class. Don't take it the wrong way, she'd say. I just want us to have more. I started working longer hours. Took on projects I didn't even like. Said yes to clients who didn't pay on time, just so I could say I was growing. She started going out more. Brunches. Weekend trips. Networking events that looked suspiciously like parties on Instagram. I'd scroll through her stories while eating reheated leftovers at the office, telling myself it was just a phase. But phases don't usually have lawyers. The morning after the dinner, I stood in the bathroom brushing my teeth, watching her in the mirror as she applied makeup like a scene partner before a play. She looked calm, effortless. I caught myself trying to find clues in her reflection. Did her eyes look guiltier than usual? Was her mouth tighter when she smiled? She caught me watching and smirked. Everything okay? I nodded, mouth full of toothpaste. Yeah, just tired. Last night was great, she said, adjusting her necklace. Your cooking was amazing. You really nailed it. Thanks, I said. I spit into the sink. Glad everyone had a good time. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, then walked out of the room humming something I didn't recognize. I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. It's wild how someone can kiss you like they mean it, and stab you in the back with a smile. Later that day, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Her phone never left her hand. Not even in the shower. She started taking calls from the gym. Even though she never came back sweaty. She asked fewer questions about my day. Didn't notice when I didn't come home on time. Just drifted further, like a boat quietly pulling from the dock. I started digging. I checked the shared account and saw 2 large withdrawals labeled consultation. I opened a junk drawer and found a notepad with scribbles I didn't understand, legal-sounding shorthand, and dates with stars next to them. I took pictures. I made copies. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for yet, but I knew I'd need evidence if this thing spiraled. And it would. It always does. That night, we sat on the couch watching a show we used to love. She laughed at all the wrong parts. I didn't say a word. Just sipped my drink and nodded when she looked my way. She reached over and held my hand, the way she used to. And I let her show act be. Not because I forgave her. Not because I was weak. Not because I was weak. Because the game had started, and I needed to make sure she never saw the moment I stopped being a pawn. You'd think after overhearing your wife and her brother plotting to carve up your life like a Thanksgiving turkey, the last thing you'd do is sit down for dinner with them. But that's exactly what I did. Because sometimes survival looks a lot like pretending. You do. The dining room looks straight out of a catalog. Candles flickering, silverware lined up like soldiers, linen napkins I had to Google how to fold. The roast chicken sat in the center like a crown jewel, golden and steaming, surrounded by bowls of vegetables, potatoes, and cornbread I'd made from scratch. It was the kind of meal that screamed effort, the kind you make when you're still trying to prove something, even when you're not sure what. Her dad took the seat at the head of the table without asking, which tracked. Her mom sat beside him, adjusting the napkin in her lap like it offended her. Nate dropped into a chair across from me, stretched out like he owned the place. The girl he brought, Cassidy, barely looked up from her phone. Her sister's kids were already fighting over who got the seat closest to the chicken, and her sister just smiled like chaos was a lifestyle choice. My wife, of course, played the perfect hostess. She poured wine, made jokes, complimented my seasoning like I was a contestant on a cooking show. "Wow, babe," she said, passing the gravy. "You really outdid yourself." I smiled and nodded, even managed a little laugh. "Well, I try to earn my keep." Nate snorted into his glass. No one else reacted. The conversation moved in predictable rhythms. Her dad talked about real estate, how the market was a joke and how he tried to tell the Fed. Her mom asked about the drapes like they were a cry for help. Nate talked about crypto and a guy named Z, who apparently owned a nightclub and 3 Teslas. The kids spilled juice and no one blinked. I watched my wife the whole time. She was in her element, charming, warm, effortless. She knew which stories to tell, which jokes would land, and when to lean in just enough to make someone feel special. I used to admire that about her. Now it felt like watching a magician, is cheating. "Dallas, still running that little business of yours?" her dad asked suddenly, turning to me with a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You and Tara's." I wiped my mouth with a napkin. "Yep, we've had a solid quarter. Took on a few new clients." He nodded like I just told him I got a C+ on a spelling test. "Well, I suppose someone's got to keep the lights on." "Better him than me," Nate chimed in, already halfway through his second glass of wine. "No offense, but I don't know how you do it, man. All that grinding and, manual labor. It's very blue-collar chic," Clarissa snorted. Or maybe that was a laugh. Hard to tell with influencers. I laughed, too, light and easy, like none of it landed. "Yeah, it's a grind," I said. "But hey, at least I don't have to sell pictures of my feet on the internet to make rent." Nate's smile dropped half an inch. Her dad chuckled. Her mom looked scandalized. "My wife?" She kept smiling, but I saw the flicker. Just a blink. Like she wasn't sure whose side I was on anymore. "Amy." Dessert came and went. The kids got pie smeared across their faces. Her sister bragged about a new fitness app. Nate tried to pitch someone a startup idea on speakerphone while standing by the fridge. And through it all, I just kept hosting, kept smiling, kept playing the role. But every moment was a test. Every conversation was a reminder of what I'd heard in that garage. And every time she touched my arm or refilled my glass or laughed at something I said, I cataloged it like evidence. Because I knew, eventually, I'd need proof that the mask had been there all along. After everyone left, she helped me clean up. We stood at the sink together, passing dishes and wiping counters like any other couple. She bumped her shoulder into mine, grinning. "That went well," she said. "No one threw food or cried. Honestly, a win." I smiled, drying a plate. "Yeah. Good vibes all around." She paused, looked at me. "You okay? You've been kinda quiet tonight." I shrugged. "Just tired. Hosting's a lot." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Well, you crushed it. Seriously. You're like the husband version of Gordon Ramsay. But, nicer." I laughed. "Just enough. I'll take that as a compliment." And we kept cleaning. Like nothing had changed. But it had. The funny thing about betrayal is that once you see it, you start seeing everything else too. The next morning, I watched her brush her hair in the mirror. She wore this soft gray robe, the one I got her last Christmas, and hummed something under her breath. Some indie song she played on repeat until I liked it too. It all looked so normal, but it felt like standing on a movie set after the cameras stopped rolling. Dusta. I wasn't sure if she suspected I'd overheard them. Maybe she figured I was too distracted during the dinner prep. Maybe she thought I was too soft, too trusting. Either way, she wasn't acting different. And that told me everything I needed to know. Stiwuston. She thought I didn't know. Stiwuston. And that meant I had puts time. She Wuston. I started small. The bank accounts first. I logged in, checked for anything out of the ordinary, and there it was. 2 consultation charges, weeks apart, same law firm. She labeled them tax prep, but unless tax prep comes with a retainer and a discrete non-itemized invoice, I was pretty sure she wasn't filing for a deduction. I downloaded the statements, printed them at the office, then hid them behind a stack of old project proposals. There's something surreal about collecting evidence in your own house, like building a case against a storm you're still living in. Later that week, I took the long way home. Drove past her co-working space, which turned out to be a juice bar next to a yoga studio. Her car wasn't there. Again. She'd said she was going to meet a client, some woman who runs a boutique candle line, but all I saw were influencers filming themselves holding smoothies like trophies. I parked a few blocks away, called her just to see what would happen. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey babe," she said, breezy as ever. "Just finishing up here. How's your day?" "Good," I said, watching the parking lot like it might answer my questions. "You still at the studio?" "Yep, just wrapping up. Probably another hour." "Another hour. Of what?" I had no idea. "Gua." I hung up, drove home in silence, and started writing things down. Names. Dates. Things she said that didn't line up. Her new friend Rachel, who appeared out of nowhere. The yoga retreat she suddenly wanted to attend alone. The second phone charger in her gym bag. It was all circumstantial, sure, but when you've seen the knife, you don't need to convince yourself it's not sharp. And through it all, I kept playing my part. We still had dinner together, still watched our shows, still did the occasional grocery run as a couple, tossing in snacks for movie night like we were teenagers again. But I wasn't holding her hand anymore. I was holding the leash on my temper, waiting, watching. One night, I found a notepad tucked behind the wine rack, half a page filled with doodles, to-do lists, and something that stopped me cold. MTG Thursday, 4 p.m. SJ, next steps plus retainer. I took a picture, put it back exactly the way I found it. And that night, when she walked through the door and greeted me with a kiss and a joke about traffic, I smiled right back. But something had shifted. I wasn't just a man reacting anymore. I was preparing. Quietly. Carefully. Like a man laying sandbags before the flood. How on? I told my best friend about it. Ryan. The kind of guy who wears flannel year-round and thinks every life problem can be fixed with a weekend in the woods. We met up for a beer. I kept it vague at first. Hypothetically, I said, if someone found out their spouse was planning to leave them, and not just leave, but take their business with them, what would you do? Ryan didn't blink. He just set down his drink. Hypothetically? Lawyer. First thing, then play dumb. Don't let them know you know. That's how you lose. I nodded, swallowing that last part like a stone. Don't let her know you know. I didn't want revenge. I wasn't that guy. But I wasn't going to let her burn down everything I built while smiling at me across the dinner table. So I made my own appointment. Quietly. Found a lawyer who didn't advertise on billboards or wear cowboy boots in court. She listened, took notes, didn't flinch when I laid it all out. And by the time I walked out of her office, I had a plan. Keyed. I didn't know how long I had before my wife made her move. But I knew one thing for sure. Keyed. When she did, I'd be ready. Keyed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the first real crack appeared. She came home early. Usually she'd text first. Running late, or do we need anything for dinner? But that day, no warning. Just the sound of the front door creaking open and her heels clicking on the hardwood like a metronome measuring my heartbeat. I was at the kitchen counter, papers spread out in front of me, half work, half don't get screwed in divorce folder. I barely had time to slide the legal envelope under the latest invoice before she walked in. "Hey," she said, sunglasses still on. "What's all this?" I smiled. "Tight, quick. Just work stuff, quarterlies." She walked over, peered down at the mess of papers. Too close. For a second I thought she'd see through it, see the edge of the envelope poking out, but then she reached for an apple from the fruit bowl and wandered off. "Smells good in here," she called over her shoulder. "You cooking tonight?" "Yeah," I said, still holding my breath. "Thought I'd grill." "Perfect," she replied. "I'm starving." I didn't exhale until I heard the shower running. Anyway. That's how it was now. Close calls. Slip-ups. Every day a new test of whether I could keep pretending I didn't know she was playing me like a part-time job. My whole life felt like it was happening inside parentheses. Half fake, half waiting. Matcha. But the truth? I was getting used to it. Too used to it. Matcha. I kept the show going. Cleaned the grill, made her favorite chicken skewers, even roasted the vegetables she always picked around but insisted made the plate look balanced. She came out in a sundress, hair damp, looking like the woman I'd married. And I hated that I still noticed, that some part of me still hoped I was wrong. Over dinner she told me about a marketing brunch she had later that week. I nodded, took a sip of water, asked what time. She said 11. I made a mental note to call the restaurant at noon, just to see. She caught me staring at her hand, at her ring. A moment passed, long enough for something unspoken to rise to the surface. "You okay?" she asked, fork paused midair. "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" I smiled, slow and tired. "How much changes without you realizing?" She tilted her head. "That sounds heavy." "It is," I said, then changed the subject. Later that night, she fell asleep on the couch. Some true crime doc playing in the background, a half glass of wine on the table. I sat beside her, not touching her, just watching. Studying the way her jaw relaxed, the way she curled slightly to the left, always away from me now. I thought about the nights I used to run my fingers through her hair, without thinking, without checking for lies hiding behind the strands. I picked up her phone. Stupid, maybe. Risky, definitely. But I couldn't help it. Carfer. She didn't have a password. She always said she had nothing to hide. Maybe that used to be true. Maybe she just forgot I existed as a threat. Either way, the screen lit up like a confession. Legs. Group chats with names I didn't recognize. Messages from someone named SJ, confirming meetings. A few texts deleted, sloppily. But one thread was still open. "Want to talk retainer Thursday, you're protected. Promise." I took a screenshot. Emailed it to myself. Deleted the evidence. Key. And put the phone back exactly where I found it. Habya. The next morning she was gone before I woke up. Left a sticky note on the counter. Early Pilates. Coffee's in the pot. Love you. Love you. I stared at the words like they were written in a different language, like I used to know what they meant, but the translation had rotted away. I met up with Ryan that night. We went to a dive bar near his place, the kind with sticky floors and a bartender who didn't ask questions. I told him what I found, all of it. He didn't interrupt once. "Man," he said finally, "this is war. She's not backing down, she's building a case." "Yeah," I said, "but so am I." He nodded, slow and steady. "You know you can't stay quiet forever." "I'm not planning to," I said. "But I need to make sure when I speak, it ends the game." We clinked glasses. Not like a toast, but like two men preparing to dig trenches. Crah. When I got home that night she was already asleep. Crah. And for the first time I didn't look at her with hurt. I looked at her like a stranger who'd wandered into my house. And I wondered what would happen when I finally asked her to leave. The envelope came on a Thursday. Cream-colored, no return address. Thick enough to feel serious. Oh, I knew what it was before I opened it. Call it instinct. Or maybe just inevitability. But when I slid my thumb under the flap and pulled out the papers, clean, clinical, stamped, I felt something strange. Not heartbreak. Not even rage. Relief. She made her move. Which meant it was finally my turn. His Boca. That night she came home late. Again. Claimed traffic. Claimed yoga. Claimed something about a friend's emergency. She looked tired, but not guilty. That was the thing about her. She never looked guilty. She looked entitled. Like whatever she was doing, she deserved to do it. Kidna. I set the envelope on the kitchen island. Kidna. Kidna, 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 ul. Kidna, 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 kidna. Paused. Her keys still in her hand. Kidna. What's this? She asked. I didn't answer, just raised an eyebrow and sipped my drink. She picked it up, opened it slowly, like she thought maybe it was something different. A bill. A letter. Anything else? All-line. Then her face dropped. Just a flicker. But I caught it. You opened it, she said, voice flat. All-line. All-line. I nodded. It's addressed to me. That's still allowed, right? She didn't answer. I waited a beat. Let the silence breathe. Then, softly, you could have said something. Her eyes flicked to mine. Calculating. I was going to. I just didn't know how. Try words, I said. They usually help. A long pause. The kind that tastes like metal. You were gone, she said finally. Emotionally, I mean. We were living in different worlds. That was rich. You mean the world where I paid the mortgage while you planned a corporate heist? Her jaw tensed. That's not fair. Neither is trying to take half of something you never built. She stepped back like I slapped her. But I hadn't raised my voice. Not once. That's the part that scared her. Ooh. She thought I'd yell. Thought I'd break down. Thought I'd be the same guy who used to apologize for working late, who used to make late-night grocery runs when she forgot something on the list. The guy who bent over and over, thinking that meant love. But that guy was gone. Folded away, like the chairs in the garage. She crossed her arms. I'm entitled to what's fair. Fair? I laughed. You stood in the driveway and planned to gut me like a fish. With your brother. I didn't. I was getting chairs. That shut her up. Her face turned pale. For the first time in months, she looked like someone who wasn't in control. I heard everything, I said. Every word. She opened her mouth, closed it. And that was when I knew she wasn't going to fight. She was going to scramble. I'm not trying to hurt you, she said, suddenly soft. I need to move on. And I need to feel secure doing it. You'll be fine, I said. You've got your brunch friends, your yoga lawyer, your influencer brother. She blinked. So what now? Now I get to stop pretending. I've spoken to my own attorney, I said. The accounts are frozen. Business assets are protected. You'll get what you're legally owed, but nothing more. That landed. Her jaw clenched. You can't do that. I already did. And then, just to twist the knife, not out of cruelty, but to make sure she heard me, I added, also, we're not hosting Easter. That got a reaction. 1 part shock, 2 parts ego. You're serious. I nodded. You started this. I'm just finishing it. She stood there, holding the envelope like it might catch fire. Then, without another word, she walked upstairs. Slowly. Deliberately. Like she was still trying to control the tempo of a conversation that was already over. I sat at the kitchen island for a while. Just breathing. It wasn't a victory, not exactly. No one wins a war like this. But it felt like closure. A crack of sunlight through a door I thought might stay shut forever. Later she came down with a bag and a tight expression. Said she was staying at her sister's for a while. I nodded, didn't stop her. Just said, let me know when you want to schedule a time to talk logistics. She hesitated at the door. You really hurt us that night? She asked, eyes searching. Every word. She nodded once, and then she was gone. The silence in the house was different now. Not heavy, not tense, just quiet. No second toothbrush. No wine glass left half full. No charger in the wall that wasn't mine. The ghost of her routines faded quicker than I expected. Funny how quickly a person's presence can disappear when they'd already left a long time ago. She moved out officially 3 weeks after that Thursday, 1 suitcase at a time, 1 awkward, just grabbing a few things visit at a time. There were no long speeches, no final blow-ups. She didn't ask for the framed photos, or the sweater I used to wear that she always stole, or the coffee mug with the little crack in it. just left them behind, like memories she didn't have space for. Pass court of the Goder, her lawyer called Bay, then mine did. The negotiations were colder than the dinners had been. She made a few plays, tried to leverage shared accounts, hinted at community assets, pushed for percentages. But she underestimated one thing: I was ready. By the time her team started probing, everything that mattered was untouchable. Contracts restructured. Licenses reassigned. Every dotted I, backed by proof she'd never touched the business, except to siphon from it. She settled. Quickly, after that, it was just paperwork, signatures, logistics. And then, freedom. I didn't celebrate. There wasn't a moment where I threw a party or popped a bottle of anything. No social media status change. No dramatic declaration. Just a quiet Saturday, where I woke up, opened the blinds, and realized I could finally breathe again. Nada changed little things first. Nada Chase swapped the sheets. Painted the wall in the hallway she always said was too dark. Donated the furniture she picked out from a catalog I never liked. I even replaced the dining chairs, the same ones I carried in from the garage that night. It felt symbolic. Necessary. Ryan came by one evening with a six-pack and a pizza. We sat on the floor, no couch yet, and watched baseball like it was therapy. Halfway through, he looked around and said, "This place feels more like you now." That hit me harder than I expected. I think I forgot what that felt like, I admitted. We toasted to starting over, though neither of us used the words. Just a glance. A quiet nod. A knowing. Curl. Work got better too. With her out of the equation, I actually started enjoying it again. Clients noticed. I noticed. The fire I'd buried under stress and survival started flickering again. I got a dog, rescued from a shelter. A wiry little mutt with crooked ears and a growl like a rusty hinge. Named him Murphy. He follows me around like I'm the center of his world. No secrets, no schemes, just loyalty wrapped in fur and stubbornness. The first real moment of peace came on a Sunday afternoon. I had a few friends over, nothing fancy. Just burgers on the grill, music playing low, a cooler of drinks by the steps. People laughed, told stories. Someone brought a kid who tried to feed Murphy a chicken bone, and I had to stage a full-blown intervention. Bird. But it was good, honest. Real. At one point, I stepped inside to grab more napkins, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. Just standing there, holding a stack of paper towels. And I smiled. Not the practiced smile I wore during that dinner. Not the forced, tight-lipped one I wore during the worst of it. A real smile, Kata. I didn't plan it. Didn't even realize I'd done it until after. But it was there. Undeniable. It hit me then. I hadn't lost. I hadn't been destroyed or ruined or broken. I'd been remade. Not because of her. In spite of her. Shukr or woe. The man who walked into that garage to get chairs was gone. But the one who came out the other side? He's better. Stronger. Quieter, maybe. But wiser. And unshakably clear on one thing. I won't carry what doesn't carry me back. Not ever again.